So thanks everybody for joining us tonight for our second candidate forum in the 2024 election cycle. Secular AZ is a nonprofit advocacy organization focused on protecting the Constitution and the separation of church and state for over a decade. I'm excited for tonight, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to learning more about these candidates. Our local school boards really are the heart of our democracy. I know we probably have a lot of newcomers here, and if our mission is something that you care deeply about, we ask you to consider becoming a member of our organization, perhaps even becoming a donor or volunteering for the various events that we have throughout the state, or better yet, all three. Also, is there a school district in Arizona that deserves some attention? Reach out to info@secularaz.org right now to let us know. But tonight, we are going to be speaking with candidates for the Catalina Foothills Unified School District, CFUSD, Governing Board. According to public records, there are 6 candidates who have filed statements of interest, and there will be 3 vacant seats in Catalina Foothills. Today, we got an RSVP from everybody, but we only have 5 folks here today. So I'm so glad that these folks have decided to let their voices be heard and talk about the communities that they hope to represent. We will give each candidate 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we'll get right into the questions. We're going to start alphabetically, and we're going to alternate who will go first for each of the subsequent round of questions. If the audience has questions, we will monitor them, but please put them in the chat, because then it's a little bit easier for us to keep track of and organize and know whether we've actually answered them or not. I do have a couple of questions that came in advance, and I have them on my list. But they're after the questions that we normally ask during these things. Let's see. So this isn't a place, this is a forum. This is not a debate. This isn't a place for personal agendas or attacks, but about these folks' candidacy and where they stand on the issues. So with that, I'm going to take a look at the chat real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything going on. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you all get started. Since Brooke is not here today, that means, oh, is Brooke here?
No, I don't see her logged
Okay,
in.
I heard a noise and I thought maybe she was crying out and saying,
You're good to go, Jeannie.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, need to keep track of this because sometimes I don't. All right, so we're gonna go ahead then and start with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, go ahead and introduce yourself, sorry.
Okay, my name is Jacqueline Diwali, and I'm very excited and honored to be a candidate for Catalina Foothills School District Governing Board. I'm a lifelong Tucsonan, public school educated. I went to the University of Arizona. I have a BA in sociology and women's studies and a Master of Arts in women's studies. After graduate school, I did an internship at the Arizona State Senate. And then, after undergraduate, I went to Arizona State Senate. And then I went to graduate school for a couple of years. After graduate school, I worked for Raytheon in a variety of roles, primarily professional development and human resources. I worked in engineering on a missile program. If you ever got a technical manual for anything, I wrote the technical manual for a weapon system, and I trained our warfighters on how to use that weapon. I also worked in program management, policies and procedures, training, basically how to run a program from beginning to end. I left Raytheon to start 2 small businesses with my husband, which we now own and manage. And that's a little bit about me and my professional background. Why am I running? My daughter graduated from CFSD in May, and we began with CFSD via open enrollment and then moved into the district. My daughter is entering the University of Arizona. Well, she has entered the University of Arizona as a sophomore. She was so well prepared for college. I spent many hours volunteering in the classroom, and I was heavily involved as a band booster in support of the high school marching band. After so many years, my investment in the district is high, so I decided to run for the board. I believe public education is a right. It's our obligation to provide the best education we can. It's a duty and commitment to our future, and that the decisions we make today have far-ranging impacts to our children and our community far beyond their K through 12 years. School boards are at the heart of our democracy, and CFSD is a small district that has a high number of open enrollment students. We're a diverse district as a result, and we bring highly motivated parents into the district in this manner. It's one of the state's most academically well-regarded districts. And after the wonderful education my daughter had, I'd like to give that same opportunity to all students in CFSD.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Right on time. Okay. Let's see. That will take us next to Eileen Jackson. Eileen, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute, Eileen. Eileen, you're on mute.
Unmute. So
There you
sorry.
go. No problem.
I'll get used to it before this is over. All right. So good evening and thank you to Secular Arizona for sponsoring this forum. My name is Eileen Jackson and I'm running to fill the 2-year opening on the CFSD Governing Board. I've served on the CFSD board for 12 years and I framed every decision I've made as a board member through the lens of what will increase student achievement. And when evaluating any program, policy, or initiative that comes before the board, I ask, will this be good for kids? This lens of student achievement has guided me and the current board to prioritize teacher and staff compensation. I simply want the best and the brightest in our classrooms, and I support as many dollars as we can to reward their expertise. Over the last 5 years, we've increased teacher and staff pay by nearly 23% and 33% respectively. We currently offer the highest starting salaries for teachers amongst our competitors in the area. This lens of student achievement led to my vote to increase the number of counselors in the district to provide the supportive services our students need to do well. With this vote, CFSD greatly improved the student to counselor ratio on our campuses, bolstering the excellent work our teachers already do to meet the academic, social, and emotional needs of our students. This lens of student achievement is why I support the district's investment in its Great Beginnings and other professional development programs for our teacher and staff. Students thrive when their leaders are learning alongside them, and our staff has continually told us they value the opportunity to collaborate with their peers. These are just some of the examples of how my and my fellow board members focus on what's good for students and how that translates into programs that benefit our kids. I'd like to keep working to maintain CFSD on this trajectory of excellence and ask for the vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for keeping under time. Tom Logue, you are next. Let's hear all about you, Tom.
All right. Well, all I can do in 2 minutes, right? So my family and I moved to Tucson 4 years ago, so I'm kind of a newbie in that sense. But when we moved here, the education of our children was our #1 priority. So as we were looking for where to live, we researched all of the districts, we looked at all the different opportunities, and we very quickly realized there was one place that we wanted our children to be educated, and that was CFSD. So from the outset, we were convinced that that was the district for us. That was 4 years ago, and all the experiences that we've had since then have really reaffirmed that that was the right decision. And in addition to having our children at CFSD schools, my wife and I were both actively involved. In fact, I was the Manzanita Elementary FFO president from 2022 to 24, which was great because it was an opportunity to get sort of a behind the scenes look at the types of decisions that get made at a school level and at a district level, and to build really good, positive relationships with parents, teachers, administrators, and district personnel. So when my daughter moved on from the elementary school to the middle school, I looked around and said, where can I serve next? And the board seemed an obvious next step, because I would like for our board to include the voice of a current parent who is actively involved and understands how board policies and board procedures impact those of us who are on the receiving end of that, so to speak. I'm going to be a district parent until 2031. So that's a long time. And in that time, I want our schools to continue to deliver the academic excellence that we've experienced, the arts, the extracurriculars, all of the wonderful things about CFSD. I want my children and all students to continue to experience those. And I want to make sure that the district stays pointed in the right direction so that all of our district students can continue to have those experiences. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. You guys, I swear, you guys are so much better than some of the other candidates we've had on here. Thank you for that. No offense to all the other candidates that have been on here. Let's see. Now we've got Mr. Bart Pemberton. Bart, take it away. Let's hear all about you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Bart Pemberton. I'm running for school board in CFSD, and I'll tell you why. CFSD is a great school district, and I want to keep it that way. I'm a third-generation Arizonan, and the Catalina Foothills has been my home for almost 30 years. My wife and I met here, we raised our children here, and I'm an owner of a small business here. I'm an eye doctor, an optometrist. All of our children attended CFSD schools. Our eldest had a great K-12 experience. She started at Manzanita, proceeded through Orange Grove, and graduated from the high school in 2023. In addition to the academic program, she loved the music program. The music and band programs are second to none. However, what motivated me to run for school board is that I realized CFSD is a great school district at risk and in decline because the current board has yet to give a fair hearing to and have a conversation with concerned parents and guardians. Instead of a laser-like focus on excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts, its members focus their energies on areas best left to the parents, thereby giving the impression that they know better than the parents what is best for their children. Nothing good can come from such a mindset. It can only lead to declining academic performance and social discord. To reverse this trend and improve the learning for all the children, I want to be elected and have the board honestly and effectively partner with parents, improve school safety for all students, faculty, and staff, and make CFSD teachers the highest paid in the state. If you want a board member who will listen to the concerns of parents or guardians and will not attempt to supplant their vital role in the raising of their children, and who will do what he or she can to ensure that the schools remain places that focus on excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts, then you should vote for Jennifer Repsher and for me. Thank you.
Again, thank you for your, very succinct responses. Jennifer, you were mentioned, so now you're next. Let's hear from you.
All right. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this forum. My name is Jennifer Repsher, and I am excited to be running for Catalina Foothills School Governing Board. A little bit about myself. I'm a born and raised Tucsonan. I've lived most of my life in the Catalina Foothills community. I did attend K through 12 in District 16, Sunrise Drive Elementary, Esperero Canyon Middle School, and I graduated from Catalina Foothills High School. I was lucky enough to marry my high school sweetheart, and once we started our family, we knew the Foothills was where we would raise our kids. Our oldest daughter also attended K through 12 in District 16, where in fact she came across some of the same teachers I had in school. She graduated with honors from Catalina Foothills High School in 2023, and she is now in her second year of college, and we are so proud of her accomplishments. I am a small business owner, formerly an owner-operator of a medical spa that I opened up in my early 20s, and now a local realtor for over 9 years. I'm invested in this community, and with 2 generations having attended our public schools, I am committed to the future improvement of our district. I decided to run for school board when I realized that concerns involving district policies, expectations of high academic achievement, safety and security, and the need for more teacher support was not met with high enough priority. The status quo just doesn't seem to be cutting it anymore. New energy, new ideas, and different perspectives can really engage our governing board to problem solve together. We do have an amazing school district with so many engaged parents, students, and teachers. We just need to work together to provide an outstanding education that relies on the input from district residents and open enrolled families. I know we can work together to address the shortcomings, the few, very few shortcomings, to strengthen school safety, engage with parents, and focus on student achievement in academics. I hope to bring respectfulness and true collaboration to our district's governing board. Thank you.
Very good. Unheard of. This is amazing. I love candidates who don't like to talk so much and get right to the point. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you. Right. With that, we're going to go to the very first question. This time we're going to start with Eileen, then Tom, then Bart, then Jennifer, and again, so on. So let's see. Here we go. Eileen, and this is going to be the question for all of you, just so you know, what is the biggest challenge facing your district and how do you plan to address it?
Well, I say one of the biggest challenge I think that our district faces, and our district is not alone in this, is the teacher shortage that all public schools are facing. I want to work to continue the board's current work on this challenge. An effective board member must make the district a destination district for the best and the brightest teachers and staff to want to come and join us. So I want to be able to continue our emphasis on increasing salary and benefits. Right now, we have the highest starting salary of all of our competitor districts in the area and the highest average salary. I want to continue our emphasis on professional development, our continued study of the climate at each of our schools in our buildings, and the workload that we're asking of our teachers. All of these things go into designing a job and a place to work that we want to make a destination district. We need to continue to identify new recruiting avenues and support our new early childhood education CTE program, which is our attempt to grow our own teachers from our high school students who take an AP class in early childhood education and then do internships in our preschool and our elementary school grades. The bigger picture of this is that this shortage is going to continue. We have a retiring group of people that are getting closer and closer to retirement, and younger people simply aren't joining the workforce in education these days because of the climate that they would have to enter. We need to, as a board, work to stop the vilification of public education, the laying of all the faults and problems of society at public school teachers' feet, and bring respect back to the profession so that if young people do feel a vocation to teach, they can feel free to teach and know that they will get the respect that they deserve. So I would like to keep continuing with that.
Thank you. All right, next, let's go to Tom. Same question. I'll say it again. What's the biggest challenge facing your district and how do you plan to address it?
Sure. You know, when I think about a question like that, and I think about the perspective that I would bring as a board member, it's really looking through the lens of the student and their experience. So for me, the biggest challenge is maintaining that student-centered environment for learning. And that really has a lot of moving pieces to it. One is certainly having teachers who are well compensated, who are motivated, who are really engaged in the classroom and in their learning. Another is having a curriculum that is developed and designed by experts, that is implemented effectively, and that is assessed for its effectiveness so that we have data we can look at to say we know what is working. And the third piece of it is simply the environment that students are in. Students learn better when they're in an environment where they feel safe, where they feel welcome, where they feel comfortable. And so looking at this through the lens of the student and putting yourself in their shoes, it comes down to evaluating every policy in terms of how well it can meet those needs.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tom. Bart, same question to you, please. You want me to read it? What's the biggest challenge facing your district and how do you plan to address it? And make sure you're unmuted.
Thank you. I'd say the biggest problem facing CFSD is the need for an honest and effective partnership with parents. When the concerns of many parents and community members are not placed on the agenda for discussion, it destroys the district's sense of community and sows distrust because it shows a lack of transparency and respect. There was a significant security threat at one of the middle schools recently, and the district response so far has been lackluster. There have been calls for a safety town hall that have so far been ignored. It's hard to ignore the fact that 3 sheriff deputies and a magnetometer are now routinely present at board meetings, a level of security far higher than at any of the schools. This disparity in security measures raises serious questions about the safety of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Jennifer, same question. What's the biggest challenge facing your district and how do you plan to address it?
Yes, it all comes down to parental involvement. And I'm not talking about the type of parental involvement which includes volunteering, donating, providing resources. Our district is fantastic at that. We really don't have an issue with that type of parental involvement. What I'm talking about is when I speak with parents who currently have children in district, parents who have pulled their kids out of district, and parents whose children have already graduated, the common topic of concern is the lack of involvement from parents who have complaints or issues. Of course, families who only have positive experiences are understandably great cheerleaders for CFSD. And it's heartwarming to hear the impact our teachers and programs can have on our students, myself and my oldest daughter included. But we cannot forget about the families with grievances. No matter the topic, many parents have felt left out of decision-making process. Unfortunately, some teachers and staff have experienced the same lack of communication when addressing the need for support and the need for action within their particular schools. Our district seems to be experiencing an erosion of true inclusivity. Parents are made to feel that if you don't like it here, you're free to send your kids elsewhere, which is the choice many parents faced with this scenario have done. Rather than address concerns head on, our current board gives the impression that they are disengaging and instead moving on to their next planned order of business. As a small community, our board, our superintendent, our principals, and administrators should set an example of true communication, which means promoting all the great our district has to offer and addressing the issues that affect our families. We have some brave and engaged parents. Let's not lose any more to a lack of true communication. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Let's see, and then we'll wrap it up then with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, go ahead. And biggest challenge, how do you want to address it?
I'm going to take a step back and look at this a little bit more holistically and say that our biggest challenge isn't just something that's CFSD is experiencing, and that is appropriate, consistent funding from our legislature. I truly believe everything else flows from this. Teacher salaries, our facilities, the programs we offer, the buses that we use, classroom supplies, counselors, everything. Without consistent funding, you cannot run a district effectively. Cuts were made during the 2008 recession, which have yet to be restored, and the state has chosen to focus its efforts elsewhere. This places the burden on local taxpayers and our community. The booster organizations, FFOs, teachers, bonds, overrides, all of this contributes to our district being successful. More so, I'd argue, in some respects, than the funding that we get from the state. It's that commitment to the district that our community brings. Having such inconsistent funding hardly leads to equality in our public school districts. And it's really not fair that every school district has to face this challenge. The voters have spoken loud and clear about this via ballot propositions, and it's time for the state to act. CFSD does an amazing job managing the budget that it has now. I've seen it in action. I've sat through budget reviews at board meetings. I understand where the money goes. But to truly change anything or make improvements or grow our programs, we need a commitment from the state beyond its annual 2% adjustment. Thank you.
All right. We are going to move on to the next question. So this time it'll be Tom, Bart, Jennifer, Jacqueline, Eileen. Tom, with you going first. And the question is, somebody brought up bonds and overrides. Does your district have a bond and or override election happening this cycle? And do you support it? Why or why not?
Yeah, so our district has been so fortunate to have the support of the community time after time in bonds and overrides, including very recently approved ones that are keeping them off of this election. But I think they're an endorsement, first of all, of the community's continued belief of the excellent schools in our district. And they've really given us the flexibility and the ability to tackle things like teacher retention and teacher development, and also facilities improvements, and most notably, based on recent events, a major investment in safety across all of our facilities. So I feel confident that in future election cycles, if that were to come up again, that our community would continue to step up and support our district.
Thank you, Tom. All right, so now we've established that you do not, or you're not going after one, but the question still remains. Do you support bond and override initiatives in your district, and why or why not? So that one we will go then to Bart.
Oh, yeah, yes. There, as was already stated, there are no bond or override measures up for a vote. Yeah, but if they were, depending on what they were and what they're for, yes, I would support them. It all comes down to the details. So, but as a general rule, if there's something that the district needs and is to keep the district on the right track, then yes, I'd support them.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thanks, Bart, again, for your succinct answer. And Jennifer, same question to you. Do you support bond and override initiatives for your district?
Yes, I believe Tom said it well, Bart said it well. Absolutely. Our community has continuously voted yes on bonds and overrides. Obviously, our community finds it very important to participate in that. Of course, bonds help keep our buildings upgraded, renovating the facilities, technology, improving the infrastructure. Our overrides provide additional funding for operational expenses, teacher salaries, extracurricular programs. So absolutely, I agree.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Same question goes to now Jacqueline.
There's really not much more that I can add to everyone's yeses except to say, yes, of course I support bonds and overrides for our district. I did even before I moved into the district, when I was a voter in TUSD district, when I was a voter in Amphitheater School District, when I was a voter in other school districts. Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Jacqueline. And finally, Eileen. Make sure you're unmuted, Eileen.
Okay, well, I'm really glad to hear that everybody on this panel supports bonds and overrides. CFSD has had M&O and capital overrides in place for 30 plus years, ever since we passed the bond to build our high school back in the 1980s. And without these bonds and overrides in place today, we would be a completely different school. We get $4 million plus in our M&O budget from the overrides that pays teacher salaries. We get $2 million a year in our capital overrides that pays for our curriculum materials and technology. And that doesn't even begin to talk about the millions that we get from our bond funds for safety programs, HVAC, roofs, facilities. I don't know if people understand that the amount of capital funding that the state gives a district each year is not enough to re-roof even one of our buildings. So the support of our taxpayers is integral. And we have to continue to go to the voters to keep these bonds and overrides in place. Losing them would be a game changer. So again, I'm glad to hear that all the panelists here are in support of this very, very important measure. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, this next question then will be going to Bart first. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm a little under the weather these days, which is why I have some backup here. So I appreciate your patience with me with all of my hemming and hawing over here. What role, Bart, should standardized testing play in driving school programming and policies? And that'll be the same question for everybody. So I'll repeat it one more time. What role should standardized testing play in driving school programming and policies? And make sure you unmute yourself. I need to mute myself. I have a very lippy chug. Sorry. Bart, are you still with us? Oh, you're muted, Bart. You're still muted, Bart.
Pardon.
There you go.
I got
There you
it.
go. All right.
Was zigging when I should have zagged. Thank you.
There you go.
Um,
I'm just going to start 2 minutes now.
Standardized tests are one measure of a student's ability. They can be very helpful in tracking a student's progress and growth as he or she progresses through school. They can help identify students who may be struggling with particular areas of learning, help teachers and staff address those struggles, and help the children overcome them. They can also be helpful in comparing student abilities from different locations and act as a balance to grades and differing grading standards. Someone may have a poor GPA but do exceedingly well on the SAT or ACT, or vice versa. So it is one measure that should neither be over nor underemphasized in assessing student and district performance. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Bart. Jennifer, same question to you. What role does standardized testing play in driving school programming and policies?
Yeah, I think Bart covered it pretty well. I agree. Standardized testing is just one tool used to provide a uniform way to measure student achievement. There is a little bit of a shortfall with that in the ability to measure areas like critical thinking and creativity. But I think our district has a nice balanced approach with the use of standardized tests to measure student growth while also using project-based learning and formative assessments. It's just one component to be used in shaping policy and guiding curriculum. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. And then we're going to go back up to Jacqueline. Jacqueline, what role should standardized testing play?
Gosh, you know, I still remember sitting down taking Iowa tests when I was a young Tucsonan in school, and having a recent graduate always hearing about the tests that she was having to take. It seemed like there was testing. My opinion is the tests represent a moment in time and aren't all encompassing of a student or a district's performance. Not everyone tests well. Some of the most successful people I know are those who freely admit they did not do well on standardized tests. There's many factors for why test scores may go up or down, and it's better to have a consistent data source, a consistent test set. And the state of Arizona has changed its test many times over the most recent years, which makes it hard to effectively measure student achievement via standardized testing. Thus, it's one data point among many that can be used to measure the level of student education and knowledge. It can be used to inform changes and updates to curriculum and teaching strategy that will better serve our students. I'd just like to say, as a parent, did I seek out CFSD for its strong academic records and testing numbers? Sure, but it's one data point. We also sought out the district for its broad and varied programming. That, to me, was equally important. Am I thrilled when my child does well on a test, and do I want to brag about it to everyone? Absolutely. But I also recognize the test is just one measure of her education. Equally important to me are her grades, her level of effort, her commitment, and her desire to learn for the sake of learning and not for the sake of a test. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oops, I changed something. I got to fix it because I didn't mean to. Sorry. All right. Same question. This time we'll go to Eileen. What role should standardized testing play in driving school programming and policies? And make sure you're unmuted.
There we go. Standardized testing, of course, does play a role. And obviously it's used by the Department of Education in its grading system. So in that respect, it takes on a measure of importance. CFSD has had 7 A-rated schools year after year after year. And part of that is because of performance on standardized testing. Obviously, it measures achievement and it measures growth, although I'll echo Jacqueline's comments that the state has changed our standardized testing mechanism so many times over the last 10 years that growth measurement is a little bit difficult. I also think it's great that the state has moved away from a high stakes standardized testing that would require passing to graduate, because it is indeed just one data point. In CFSD, we do use that data to inform future instruction and to differentiate instruction and move the needle among any subgroup or even down to the individual student level. And to that end, I was part of the board vote that supported the acquisition of a new data analysis guru position in our district, whose sole responsibility is to support administrators and teachers in tearing into that data, drilling down to the subgroups that are having difficulty, to individual students that are having difficulty, and affecting instruction and setting up differentiated instruction to help those children do better. This is not new work for us, but we are consistently investing in resources that will make that data work for us. I'm actually a little bit more interested in our district common assessments, which are assessments that we administer across the school district, developed by our own people and keyed to our own curriculum. They also measure those soft skills like critical thinking, problem solving, citizenship, innovation, collaboration, and systems thinking. So standardized testing has its place, and CFSD has placed its stamp
Time-
on usage.
Sorry, time's up. Sorry. Thank you so
No
much,
problem.
Eileen. And then I should stop this. Okay. And now, last but not least, Tom, same question to you.
Sure. And I'm, by occupation, I'm a data guy. So always love numbers. I appreciate everything that a great data set can do in terms of helping assess impact, in terms of helping drive decision making. But I think it's also important to acknowledge that every data set has its limitations. And yes, some of those relate to it being a moment in time, and some children testing better than other children. I think another issue that can come up is if you know the test, you know how to teach to the test. And so to some degree, you can, if you want to, emphasize that over actual education, get great scores. What I'm thrilled to report as a parent of CFSD students is that has not been my experience. My experience has been standardized testing serves as a springboard to ask why, which is exactly what it should be doing. You doing well on this? Why? What parts of the curriculum are effective? Not just at a macro level, but to be able to sit down with your students' teachers and say, I noticed this score. Can you tell me more about it? And to an individual, every time that we have done that, we have heard in-depth responses from our students' teachers about, well, here's what I observe your student doing, and here's where I see them struggling. And so standardized testing from a specific student perspective, in that sense, serves the purpose it should, which is a starting point for conversations with parents to enhance the education for that individual student and make it as effective as possible. Then you roll that up and say, what's working and how well is it working for the class, for the grade, et cetera, and use that for decisions, but not as a knee-jerk reaction to a score being up or down 5 points, 10 points, et cetera.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, next question. And this one, sorry about that. This time we are going to start with Jennifer. Jennifer, what role, if any, should religion play in public schools?
Yes, public schools are a government institution and must remain neutral on religious matters. Our students come from diverse religious and non-religious backgrounds, which is why it's important that our public schools not promote any particular religion. Now, with that said, our children should learn about all religions to understand the role it plays in society, to gain a deeper understanding of history, literature, art, and politics. This allows them to engage with complex ideas, question assumptions, and hopefully appreciate diversity of thought. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Let's see, Jacqueline, same question to you. What religion or what role, if any, should religion play in our public schools?
I don't believe it should play any outside of contextualizing academics. And I'd like to tell a story about my own experience in a public school here in Arizona. My senior year of high school in AP English, we read the Old Testament, and I was really confused as to why. Well, it turns out the Old Testament has a lot to do with the literature that we enjoy in our society today. That's an appropriate use of a religious text in a public school. I'd also like to say that it's not appropriate to promote religion in public schools in any way that's inherently exclusionary to those who are not of the same belief. Even myself, who is of a different faith and a different set of beliefs than my husband. That's for me and me alone. That's not for me to put upon others. And that is how I tend to think of schools. It's for the school to teach my child, not indoctrinate my child in a religion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Let's see, Eileen, the same question goes to you. What role, if any, should religion play in public schools?
I think the role must be specific and limited to curriculum only. I don't think you can teach a social studies course. You can't learn about other countries or other points in time in history without understanding the prevailing religion in that country or that point in time. You can't really understand art, music, or literature without understanding the religious and cultural influences on a piece of sculpture or a painting or a piece of classical music or a literature selection. But it has to end with the curriculum delivered to educate and not to proselytize. I think it's okay to say the founders of our country were mainly Christians. I don't think it is okay to say that this is a Christian country. Thomas Jefferson coined the separation of church and state phrase and avidly imposed imposition of any one religion. We have over 5,000 students, which kind of extrapolates into about 15 to 20,000 people if you factor in their family size. A myriad of religious beliefs amongst those people, all must be respected and no one elevated over the other.
Thank you, Eileen. All right, Tom, same question to you.
Yeah, and I don't think I have anything new to add in terms of, I think we're all kind of aligned on that division of church and state, on religion not playing a role in school beyond curriculum. I will say, I think the way that CFSD handles that, I've certainly appreciated as a parent because it's led to some great dinner table conversations. I mean, sitting around talking with my son just a couple of weeks ago about the role that Buddhism played in shaping, as he was covering that in his world history class just last month. Those are the kinds of things that I think are appropriate applications of understanding religion within a broader context and the impact that it has.
Thanks, Tom. All right, that'll take us to our next question. Let's see, and we're going to be starting with Jacqueline this time.
Can
let's
I
see.
interrupt for just a
I
second?
don't think
sure,
Bart
sure.
got the answer.
I don't think you asked me.
Bart, I'm so see this, and I wrote it down even, and I went too fast. I'm so sorry. Please, Bart, answer. I'm so sorry. Go
No
ahead.
problem. No problem. Well, I'd say learning about different religions is a critical part of any education, and this is especially true for American history, the early colonies, Mayflower Compact, Revolutionary War, Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, etc. Learning comparative religions, ancient and current, is also critical to a well-rounded education. The school must, of course, do what it reasonably can to remain neutral in terms of promoting or favoring any particular religion or religious tradition over another. It should be tolerant, understanding, and respectful of those of different religious backgrounds. The balance that must be struck is teaching religion, but at the same time, allowing the free exercise thereof as much as practically possible, and not promoting or favoring one faith over another. Thank you.
Thank you. This one is something that came in through the emails, but it's also something that I've asked in the past, because this is something that our members really care about, as well as whoever sent it in today. But do you think the Pledge of Allegiance, so this one's going to be for Jacqueline first. Do you think the Pledge of Allegiance should be recited, including the phrase "under God" at regular school board meetings?
I am so excited to finally get to answer this question in a public manner because I have been taken to task for this by certain people in our community. Whether or not to say the pledge and also to respect another's right in this manner is about as fundamentally American as possible, and it recognizes every individual's own freedom of choice. I'm aware of no law or policy which states the pledge must or must not be said, nor am I aware of any test which states doing so is a true measure of one's patriotism and commitment to our country. Outward overt displays of patriotism are not an accurate measure of an individual's Americanness. That said, I have no issue with the pledge being said at board meetings and in classrooms. Parents have the right to instruct their child to not participate, and every citizen has the right to choose their participation. If one chooses to not participate, then that individual should stand out of respect for others. And with regard to the under God part, that was not part of our original pledge. It was inserted in 1954, and I can understand why some people would say the pledge but omit those words because they prefer a separation of church and state. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Eileen, same question to you. Do you think the Pledge of Allegiance should be recited, including the phrase under God at regular board meetings?
Well, following Jacqueline's answer, I don't have a heck of a lot to add. We do recite the pledge at the start of every single one of our board meetings, and I agree with Jacqueline. People who object to the full pledge or a portion of the pledge have the opportunity to just stand respectfully while that ceremony is taking place. Seems like an easy balance to me and an easy compromise.
Thanks, Eileen. Okay, that means Tom, you are next. I'm happy to say it again if you need me to.
No, I got it.
Okay.
It feels like one of those questions that has a hidden meaning to it somehow. Because I think on the face of it, it's very obvious to me. I've never been in a meeting. I've never been in a place where it's been required to stand up and say the pledge. I appreciate people's varying levels of patriotism and enthusiasm for the pledge, and in some cases omitting parts of it. I know people who have served and have taken the pledge to, you know, the ultimate degree of serving in the military and risking their own lives, who didn't feel like saying the under God part. And that's part of what is inherently American, is our freedom to have whatever level of speech and participation we want to.
Thanks, Tom. Bart, I won't forget you this time. Same question to you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes, definitely it should be said at every meeting and in the classroom, and I've got nothing to add.
Thanks, Bart. You're next, Jennifer.
All right. Well, I will just go off of my personal feeling on stating the pledge. It makes me feel part of our community. I feel proud, and I feel it's a sign of respect. Of course, the God portion of it is up to any individual whether or not to participate in that portion of the pledge. But it certainly has a bigger meaning to me, especially thinking of my grandpa who passed, but a veteran, served in the military. And it makes me feel proud to be an American, to stand up and participate in that with those I'm surrounded by. And I think that's an important feeling and sensation that we have as Americans, to feel part of one group. And again, the under God portion is an individual choice, whether or not you'd like to say that. That's my stance. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, now we're back to starting with Eileen, correct? Okay, I got this, you guys. Okay, so here's one of our questions. So do you support programming that includes, and you know, I would say this kind of we got a couple of questions like this too. And I mean, I'm not really sure if these go along together, but I think they kind of do. I'm just gonna read the one that I have. What is your stance on wraparound services for children, such as social workers, free lunch programs, vaccination clinics, you know, sports physicals, things like that, mental health services?
Okay.
That's an awful lot, but you know, wraparound services, I wanted to define it for maybe folks in the audience who don't really know what that means. And so go ahead, Eileen.
Certainly. Well, I think anything that helps meet a student's basic needs is going to increase that student's ability to learn. And one of the things that CFSD has been focusing on in recent years is increasing our counseling staff on campus. So I don't know if people are aware, but the state of Arizona has the worst student to counselor ratio in the country, at one counselor to 667 students. And so I would say over the last 5 years, CFSD has been focusing on its counseling program, has been increasing the number of counselors on our staff, and gotten our ratio to anywhere from 1 to 360 students to the ideal, which is 1 to 250 students, depending on our campus that we're talking about. And these counselors perform an integral role and can provide referrals to what you refer to as a wraparound service to help meet the needs of students that might be precluding them from actually being able to learn. Our counselors cannot be all things to all people. They cannot provide long-term counseling services, but they are an addition to the vigilant adults on our staff who are there to get to know our students, to understand what their needs might be, and get them to the resources and services that they need so that they are free to come to school and be comfortable and feel safe and be able to deal with the things that are going on in their life such that they can learn. So to the extent that we can refer students to wraparound services, absolutely. It would be great if we had the funding from the state to provide those services on campus. That's a discussion for another day.
Perfect. I was just about to give you the 10-second warning. All right, Tom, same question goes to you. Where did I put it? Stance on wraparound services for kids.
I mean, as I've already mentioned, I think, my approach is put yourself in the shoes of the student. And the job of our schools is to educate our students. So when you look at what those obstacles might be to an individual student achieving success in schools, in many cases, those are things where wraparound services can bridge a gap. They're things where wraparound services can provide that boost that gets a student on par with others. So I'm a big fan of having those and of having a disciplined approach to evaluating what services might be needed and might be helpful. I think it's important to point out as part of this that we're not talking about these as being mandatory. These are services. And so ultimately parents can and should play a role and have a voice in what services they or their students or they as a family take advantage of. But to have those services available, I think, is just part and parcel of what it means to be a public institution serving for the public good.
Thanks, Tom. Let's see. So then Bart, you're going to be next. What is your stance on wraparound services for kids?
Oh, thanks. Well, one thing, this inevitably involves there's many aspects to it. Counselors are one. My mother was a guidance counselor and educator for almost 40 years. When I was older, she would share her experiences with me in her role as a guidance counselor. And she was fantastic at giving advice and guidance to students and their families in terms of what direction those students should take as they progress through high school and once they graduated, whether that meant pursuing college or trade school or other career paths. So guidance counseling is, of course, very important. When you get to these other areas that are so all-encompassing, then the details matter. So the most important provider of these services, however you want to define them, because they're encompassing many things, but the most important is going to come from the parents. So supplemental support from the school can potentially be helpful, but again, the details of the implementation matter. And any implementation that excludes or keeps parents in the dark will cause more problems than it solves. We have to ask ourselves a very important question. Are schools for learning or are they for therapy? Any time taken away from classroom learning can harm ultimate excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts. So these are important things. Even though the standardized tests have changed, that does make it hard to track over time. If you go back, our proficiencies in math and ELA were 84%, 94% back, all the way back to 2013, 2014, and they've declined quite a bit since then. They are now 58% and 70% respectively. And this is around the same time a lot of these wraparound services, whether they're called SEL or anything else, they have been implemented in most or all the curricula. Could this have something to do with the decline? I don't know, but I think it bears investigating.
Okay, so that's a no then? I'm not sure. I couldn't. You muted yourself, Bart.
I'm sorry. I don't know where I got cut off or not.
I think I was just trying to clarify. I couldn't Yeah, I just wasn't sure what your answer was, that's all. I mean,
I don't know.
would you, so do you support them or not, I guess?
No, I support them. The details matter. How are they implemented?
Okay,
And that's what matters. And parents have to be included.
my apologies, yeah. Okay, Jennifer, same question to you then. What's your stance on wraparound services for children?
Yes, well, I think we need to be cautious of introducing this within our school systems. The funding for public schools is already so short, not covering all the items that really need to be focused on. This could definitely thin out what's available for all the important aspects of our children's education. We also need to be careful not to cross that line into having our schools be everything for all students, right? We need to make sure that parents play their role as a parent, which definitely includes the health and well-being of their children. We don't want to overstep the values of all of our different families. There are a lot of aspects with the wraparound topic that would really need to be looked into to make sure things are implemented in a fashion that involves parents, that is cautious of the type of funding, and that truly actually supports the excellence in academics for our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, so let's see. One more, and that goes to, I almost forgot you two. I do this thing with the fifth person and I kind of forget, and I really apologize. So Jacqueline, same question. What's your stance on wraparound services for students?
I support them, and I think there should be more. It's part of educating the whole child. When you educate the whole child, you support them in all ways possible, their academic performance goes up. Many studies have shown this. That doesn't mean that parents don't have the right to be involved in what services their child receives. But generally speaking, I don't have a problem with vaccine clinics on campuses. I don't have a problem with enhanced mental health services. And in fact, I don't believe that a lot of this takes money from our state budget in some respects. Free vaccine clinics are offered by the public health department, for example. There are grant programs that school districts can and do apply for to receive more funds for mental health counseling. So it's not a zero-sum game whereby you take money from academics to support the whole child. You do all these things to support the whole child, and that includes pursuing all avenues of funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. You know what? And I'm going to still go back to the couple of questions that I still have left. But since I got, I think, 2 emails almost identical about whole child education, and you brought it up, Jacqueline, I'm going to go ahead and start you off, Tom, with this question that came in from a couple of people, because I think Jacqueline kind of touched on it. The question is, for candidates seeking the whole child approach to public education, how do you budget for counselors and student programs without impacting academic instruction time and teacher pay? I can repeat it again too. That way everybody can get a good listen. And Jacqueline, if you want to follow up too, because you did kind of start to talk about it, but since a couple people asked, for candidates seeking the whole child approach to public education, how do you budget for counselors and student programs without impacting academic instruction time and teacher pay? And that goes to you,
That goes
Tom.
to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that goes to you. Sorry.
Let me kick this one off. All right, I think a big part of this is saying by not viewing it as an either or. Because when you look at social emotional learning, for instance, that's a great example of where you are not saying we're going to spend 25% of our time today working on this and then 75% on academics. It's saying we're going to teach this that we're teaching in the context of social emotional learning. We're going to integrate these two things. That's not to say that counselor funding is not an issue, and it certainly is at the district level and at the state level. It's certainly why I support Governor Hobbs's approach to increasing funding that applies not only to teachers, but also to other staff such as counselors. So there's a monetary piece to this for sure, but the idea that we have to choose between one or the other to educate the whole child, in my mind, is a faulty premise, because it's more about how you as a group in the district work on curriculum that integrates those things together.
Okay. All right. Let's see. That means Bart, you are next. Same question. For those seeking the whole child approach, how do you budget for counselors and student programs without, I mean, this, yeah. For counselors and student programs without impacting academic instruction, teacher time and pay.
Well, again, I think that's the rub. How do you balance those things? And then again, the most important thing is parental involvement with this. So anything that gets in between the parents and their children is potentially a very big problem, and that would have to be avoided. The other thing is, again, we have to decide what is the purpose of a school? Is it to provide therapy, or is it to provide an education? And I think that's something. I think there's a little bit of an identity crisis in the schools because you can't. I don't think it's possible. We have experts to do, that kind of mental health and that type of mental health counseling, and so I think we just need to decide what's the primary purpose of the schools, and find the best balance that we can. Work with the community, get feedback from the community, see where they wish to go, which direction, and then look at the costs involved and see what can be done. But most importantly, don't get in between the parents. Include the parents. They have to be involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. All right, same question, this time back up to you, Jacqueline.
Did you want to go to Jennifer first? If we're doing alphabetically?
Yes, please. I'm
It's
so
okay.
sorry.
There's a
What
lot of us.
happens when I kind of go ahead, like I'm like, okay, he's done. Now I'm going to go to her. And then because I've already written it down, then I skip. And I'm really sorry, Jennifer. Please, same question to you.
Yeah, so I'm not going to pretend to know how to handle the budget yet. I am not on the board yet. So that is a little bit of a hard question to answer, to understand where money is coming and going for this particular whole child objective. But what I will say is yes, I definitely agree that parent involvement is key. We need to have a clear understanding of what whole child encompasses, and the input from our community and parents on whether or not that's an actual good impact for our students. We do send our kids to school to learn the core subjects, math, reading, writing. We don't want our schools to overstep the boundary of where parents parent and schools are for learning. So it is something that needs to incorporate our community, and our constituents need to be a part of that decision making. And we go from there with that type of information and making the decision on how to incorporate what type of whole child learning is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, now, Jacqueline, back up to you. Whole child education, and how do you fund it?
Well, I suppose I have a philosophical difference in that I think that part of sending my child to a public school is teaching them how to be part of a public society. And that means teaching them what some people call soft skills: community, country, cooperation, teaming, management of self. None of these things are bad. And in my opinion, these things are needed more in our society. As for how we fund them, that's already public knowledge in our budget, which anyone can access at any time or attend a board meeting and see how the budget is reviewed. As I mentioned before, there's many grants that are out there that school districts can apply for. My understanding is the district is very successful in applying for and obtaining grants for which it would qualify. I'd also like to point out that educating the whole child via social and emotional learning is already a part and has been a part of CFSD's curriculum for a number of years. It's part of the mission vision, and core values of our district. It's a guiding principle for how CFSD educates its children. And I don't think that it needs to go anywhere anytime soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. All right, last but not least, Eileen, same question to you.
Well, you don't get academic achievement without paying attention to the whole child. And Jacqueline's correct. Social emotional learning has been embedded in the CFSD curriculum for decades. Unless you teach a child to manage stress and anxiety, they have difficulty learning under conditions of stress and anxiety. And we know from recent news reports that today's youth are laboring under more stress and anxiety than ever before. SEL, or social emotional learning, builds resilience and perseverance in our students, which makes them better problem solvers, which makes them better learners. Social and emotional skills help people learn to work with others. They build those interpersonal skills and those communication skills that are so important to work with others in school and to work with others when they eventually make their professional choices. So you do not get academic achievement. You don't get academic achievement like CFSDs without focusing on SEL. It is embedded in our curriculum. It's taught by teachers. Those lessons are supported by our counselors. And as Jacqueline said, we have been funding these efforts for decades.
Great, thank you so much, Eileen. All right, let's see who is going to be first now. This time it's going to be Bart. And I think maybe this could probably be the last one. And then I want to go check the chat. I did notice some of the Q&A and I said, you know, I'd rather not have questions for specific board members. I don't want to have gotcha moments or anything like that. So if there's a way that you could maybe reword some of your questions, it's more inclusive for everybody and not, you know, coming after somebody as an individual, I would really appreciate that. So let's see. So this question is going to go to you, Bart. Do you support programming that includes medically accurate, age-appropriate, comprehensive sex ed, or CSE as it's otherwise known?
As long as there's proper informed parental consent, then parents can opt their children in. As long as everybody knows what's going on going in, then that's not a problem. That's as long as the parents are involved and fully informed as to what the course matter will be, that's fine.
Great. Was there anything else? I'm sorry. Great. Thank you, Bart. Okay, Jennifer, same question to you. Do you support programming that includes medically accurate, age-appropriate, opt-in, as you said, comprehensive sex ed, CSE?
All sex education should be opt-in for parents. After reviewing the curriculum, if a parent wishes to include their child in sex ed, they may opt in. All families are not created equal, and some information taught in sex ed may not align with a family's values, and schools need to be sensitive to that. Age-appropriate content about puberty, reproduction, and health-related topics like STDs can provide medically accurate information about human development. So I think opt-in can be a great way to help keep sex education curriculum transparent. This just allows parents to be more informed and make a choice that works for their children.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Same question now. We'll go to Jacqueline. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Yes, absolutely. I support it. I think that it's more than sex ed, though. Let's be real here. It's inclusion about information about healthy relationships, self-esteem, body confidence, gender equity, communication, empathy, respect, consent, how to be safe. So to drill it down to just your body does this or your body does that, it's so much more. And again, that's part of looking at things holistically and from a broader perspective than just one narrow view. Many studies have demonstrated that comprehensive sex education programs reduce the rates of sexual activity, sexual risk behaviors, STIs, and adolescent pregnancy. Isn't this what we as a society want? Therefore, I absolutely approve of it. And I do think that parents do have the right to opt into it. The curriculum can be reviewed. My daughter had many friends whose parents opted their children out of it. that's their right as a parent. And I understand and appreciate that they may wish to have more impact in their child's life or more involvement in teaching that. But as a parent, I find sometimes it's great to have a more neutral party address these issues with my child. And that's where I actually think some of these programs are most impactful, when they hear it from a neutral third party. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Same question to you, Eileen. Do you support CSE?
I absolutely support a comprehensive health and human development or sex education program, and CFSD does offer one. Arizona is an opt-in state, and you are required to have children opt or families opt into sex education if you do indeed offer that curriculum. And of course, CFSD is in full compliance with that opt-in law. We're also very, very careful about our curriculum to make sure that it is medically accurate and age appropriate and is in compliance with all Arizona revised statutes that govern this topic. The CFSD governing board is always very meticulous about reviewing every single material that is used in our sex education curriculum prior to it being approved and prior to it being set up for review by parents. So yes, I absolutely support it. I don't think we are truly completely educating a child without covering this important topic.
Great. And then finally, same question to you, Tom.
Sure, absolutely support it. And I think it's important to emphasize here that we're teaching facts, we're teaching science, we're teaching, you know, that this is we're not approaching this, and when I say we, I mean it from the district's perspective. This is not a question of what should or should not be happening. It's a question of what are the scientific facts around these issues. So I think it's critically important for our students to receive that age-appropriate information, and it's a great springboard for additional conversation at home. I compliment the district as a current parent of two children at different ages, kind of bracketing this, that there's very age-appropriate and relevant information that's being shared, and that the district is very proactive about reaching out in advance and saying, here's what it's going to be. Granted, anyone can access that. The curriculum development process is very transparent at the district level. But for an individual parent, you receive that outreach and you are told this is what's going to be covered. And you are asked if you are okay with that. So that, to me, kind of checks that box around what a parent's role should be. And parents have the right and ability to easily say no thank you to that piece or any piece of that. So I think it's very important information, and frankly, it's something that makes me nervous when I see things that our legislature is doing to try to make inroads on prohibiting or restricting some of that, because I think it's a very important thing for all of our children to be learning about.
Great, thank you. Okay, there's one more that we got sent in, and then I'll go back to the chat. And again, folks, please don't put no personal questions, please. Let's try to keep it more general. Let's see, given, given the recent attitudes and slurs on LGBTQ individuals in schools and board meetings, what will you do to protect those students in CFSD? And let's see, this time I'm going to start with Jennifer.
I think we need to remember that our students are a part of a bigger community, right? They are learners of District 16. They are Falcons at our high school. They are Panthers at Orange Grove. They are Eagles at Esperero. And we need to remember to remind our students that that is what they have in common. That is what they go to school for, is to learn. And I don't believe we need to separate our children into smaller groups and create division that way. I think we need to remind everybody that they are part of the bigger community and have engagement that way, have excitement that way for our students instead of individualizing any of our children. Bring them together as part of the group. Thanks.
Okay, All right, let's see. Next, then, we're going to go to Jacqueline. Same question, given the recent attitudes and slurs on LGBTQ individuals in schools and at board meetings, what will you do to protect those students in CFSD?
It's not appropriate to make slurs against any individual for any reason. Jennifer's right. Our children and our society are part of a group, and it's also important to remember and celebrate individual differences among people. And by looping everyone into a one homogeneous group, you're failing to show that your school is a diverse reflection of the diverse society around it. And that's what we need to teach our children, that we need to be tolerant and accepting of everyone around us, because in the real world, outside of our schools, that is a skill everyone is going to need so that we can function as a society and as a country. It's inappropriate for anyone to call anyone names or slurs in a school, at a board meeting, at the grocery store, anywhere you go. And I'd like to see more attention paid to helping our children understand and recognize the unique intrinsic differences of all students and accepting and tolerating that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Let's see. Next is Eileen. Same question to you, Eileen.
So yeah, I experienced a little bit of this last spring, and I was incredibly proud of our board last spring when there was a small but very vocal group of parents, together with a larger group of non-parents and anti-LGBTQ plus groups, that came to our board meetings and used our public comment portion to attack the district for its non-discrimination policies. CFSD has a strict non-discrimination policy that aims to govern every single aspect of a student's life, and that includes the use of shared facilities. The rhetoric in those public comments was ugly, it was uninformed, and it was sadly directed at children. It's vitally important that we continue to protect the district's non-discrimination policy. It's one of the main reasons I decided to run again for this 2-year position, because I want to continue to stand between our students and that faction of society that doesn't want to let them exist in peace. I want to continue to stand between our kids and that kind of rhetoric. I want to protect our non-discrimination policy and make sure that no one is able to enter our board and erode that policy. And I want to perpetuate CFSD's reputation as a safe place for all of our students.
Thank you, Eileen. All right, same question goes to you, Tom, as I try to control my dog. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my job's easier than yours. So I think, I mean, Eileen alluded to one very obvious example where this came up, but there's a more recent one that came to mind for me. Not as major, not as dramatic, but at the beginning of this school year, there was a small group of protesters that stood across the street from the high school, screaming slurs and holding signs, and it was a very unfortunate scene. And in my mind, you know, as I thought about this from the perspective of a student, if you were a student in the LGBTQ community and you got off a bus and you saw that, I think what would make a world of difference for you is knowing whether you were walking through a gate into a school that welcomed you and supported you, or walking through a gate into a school that had undertones of those same protesters in their policies. And I'm so thrilled that CFSD doesn't just have a non-discrimination policy on paper, but lives that non-discrimination policy every day, because that safe and welcoming environment that every student needs in order to be able to learn effectively doesn't happen by accident. It happens through conscientious application of policies and procedures to ensure that every student feels safe and welcome. That applies regardless of the community. It's unfortunate that there are some communities that tend to be more generally maligned than others. And when that happens and I see CFSD, the district teachers, staff standing up for those students, it warms my heart.
Sorry, my dog was loud, and now here we go. Given the recent attitudes and slurs on LGBTQ individuals in schools and board meetings, what will you do to protect those students in CFSD? Bart, go ahead.
Well, student safety must be a top concern. Anything that jeopardizes the student safety and privacy must be avoided. The physical, followed by the mental well-being of the students, faculty, and staff must also be top priorities. Parents must be informed what the specific policies and practices are with regard to shared facilities and other things similar to that. They shouldn't have to guess or find out after the fact. The policies and practices should be widely trumpeted and broadcast so that there is no misunderstanding. Additionally, when the board ignores legitimate concerns, it could lead to dismay and harsh words. Part of the way to alleviate the current contentious atmosphere would be for all of us to remember that we care so much about what happens in the schools because we love our children. We can then remember and admit that though we all love our children, we will not always agree on the best solution to any particular problem that they, individually or collectively, may face. Finally, we can do our best to discuss the pressing issues facing our schools in a professional and loving manner in the proper public forum of a school board meeting. This includes respectful communication, where everyone's voice is heard and respected, where there is an actual dialogue. And while it's essential to maintain organizational order to get things done, it's equally important to ensure that the concerns of parents and residents are not overlooked. If a significant number of parents or residents express a desire to address a particular issue, there should be a formal process to make that happen. This would show that their concerns are not only acknowledged but also respected, providing a sense of reassurance and security. In the not too distant past, the board was submitted a petition that basically states when 100 or more district residents or parents of CFSD students formally, via their signatures, indicate the desire for the board to discuss and ultimately vote on an item of concern, the board shall do so. Over 150 district residents or parents signed that petition, but it was ignored.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Whenever that thing goes off and then I don't even know how to turn off. Sorry about that. Thank you, Bart. My apologies. All right. So I'm going to head on over to some of the questions that are coming up in the chat. I really like this one. How have you prepared? And this one is going to go to, let's see. It's going to go to Jacqueline first. How have you prepared to become a CFSD board member, and what particular skill sets do you bring to the table that sets you apart from the other candidates?
That's a great question. I'm so glad to answer it. For me, it's my involvement in the schools. It's enrolling my child in the schools for the board for which I wish to serve on. Understanding how the schools work, attending board meetings consistently and regularly, and staying for all the parts of the board meeting, including after public comments, have allowed me to understand what's actually happening in our school district. Being an involved parent, building my network with other parents who care about the district as much as I do, has provided me a lot of information and knowledge about what my fellow parents want. My professional experience, running programs from beginning to end, policies, procedures, budget, management, collaboration, planning, all of those lend themselves to the work of a board member. I look forward to doing this work as a board member and further being involved in my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Same question goes to you. How have you prepared to become a CFSD board member? Skills.
Me, correct?
I'm sorry. Yes, Eileen. Yes.
Well, I've actually been on the board for the last 12 years, so that's obviously been great preparation to take on the 2-year position. But prior to that, 12 years ago, I was very, very involved in the school district. I was an FFO mom. I ran book fairs, silent auctions. I volunteered in classrooms. I supervised field trips. I was the FFO president for several years at my kids' elementary and middle schools. I chaired the Friends of CFSD. This is an organization that mobilizes each time the district has a bond or an override measure on the ballot. We organize to make sure that that ballot measure gets passed because those funds are critical to our operation in the district. Outside of the district, I worked with an organization called the Arizona Education Network, which was a group of parents that was concerned with the lack of investment in public education. Then I worked for several years on trying to establish a dedicated funding source to get more money into public education. And so when my youngest was a sophomore, I saw the empty nest handwriting on the wall and I started thinking about what would be next. I really felt that my inside knowledge of how the district worked, my knowledge of the teachers and the staff and the families and the kids, and my understanding of the challenges public education faces, all of this was good prep to take on a school board role. I combined that with my desire to make sure that all CFSD students in the future would receive the same high quality education my 3 kids got. And I made the decision to run, and that's how I prepared.
Thanks, Eileen. Same question goes to you, Tom.
So preparation and experience, right?
Yes.
Okay. So on the preparation front, one of the things that really I think gives me an advantage is having 2 children in district right now. Because every day is preparation. Every day is me understanding how board policies impact not only teachers, but parents and students and families. So on the preparation front, I'm living that, but I add the context of attending board meetings and watching and listening to how the work gets done and reviewing all of the documentation that the board uploads and posts on the website to have those conversations so that there's context around, okay, here's a piece of legislative activity. How are we responding to that? What do we need to do about that? So that is certainly one piece of preparation. Another piece of preparation goes back 2 years to when I started being involved at the Manzanita FFO. Being involved with an FFO is more than just volunteering for school events. You also work with other FFOs across schools. You don't just attend meetings at your school where you get to talk to the principal and staff and board members who attend. You also go to other schools and you meet with other FFO presidents and you share stories and you hear concerns and you get a sense of what's going on district-wide. So not only is that a matter of building relationships that are collaborative in nature, it also means getting a lot of information about what happens behind the scenes and how work gets done at the district that then gets reflected in everything that you see openly and transparently at the district level during meetings.
All right. Same question, this time to Bart.
Yes. Well, starting at the school level, I guess many years ago, I participated in the FFO at Manzanita. I founded the Handy Helpers Committee, which assisted in various projects that would come up at the school. I was a member of the site council there, and also supporter of the band boosters once the kids got to high school, or our eldest got to high school, that is. I'm the past president of the Arizona Optometric Association, and I've been a small business owner, private practice for the last over 20 years. So all those involve a lot of organizational skills, decision-making, delegation, assessing strengths and weaknesses, and getting the job done. And I think all of that prepares me very well to serve as a board member. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bart. And same question to you, Jennifer.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a unique situation. I'm the only one currently here that has the ability to compare and contrast my educational experience through District 16 alongside with my daughter's educational experience through District 16. And I think that can bring a little insight to what can be adjusted within our district. Understanding our overall role as school governing board members to provide strategic direction, oversight, leadership, which ensures that our district delivers high quality education to our students in a manner that's transparent, accountable, and responsive to the needs of our community is important. Within my professional careers as a small business owner, I interact with many different types of people, and I have to have the ability to negotiate back and forth, not only as a realtor, but to engage with my clients to basically get the needs everyone the needs of both parties, basically. So we've got our buyers, we've got our sellers, and the main goal is the sale of a house. And we really have to come to the general agreement as a group to be able to ensure that that transaction gets completed. That's important. That's an important aspect to interacting with our community, to be able to listen and communicate with our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. There is a really great question in here that I just love, because I used to teach speech and debate myself. And so I really love this question. This time we are going to start with Eileen. What are your thoughts on teaching students on how to recognize fake news and disinformation? Would you support incorporating this into curriculum?
Oh, this already exists within our curriculum. You can pull down any one of our curriculum documents, and part of the essential questions and the learning goals that are in our curriculum documents is for teaching children how to think critically about sources. I don't think that you can purport to educate children in the 21st century without hitting this issue of what is an appropriate source, what is not an appropriate source, and how do you tell the difference between those two things. This has been embedded in our curriculum for years, whether we're talking about a social studies curriculum, an ELA curriculum, any of our curriculum. So absolutely, this is an integral part of our students' education and understanding the differences between just Googling something and getting to a reliable source.
Great, thank you, Eileen. Let me get back there so I can ask Tom the same question. Thoughts on teaching students on how to recognize fake news and disinformation?
Yeah, echoing this from the flip side of it, these are more enjoyable dinner table conversations because this is being taught. And what I love about the way it's being taught across the middle school and high school level, from what I've experienced, is that it's taught as a practice. It's taught as an approach to say, here's how you evaluate information. What I have never seen or heard taught is anything that says, this is fake news, or this is a source you should question. And I think that's good, because that is where an individual teacher's judgment or an individual staff member's judgment might come into play. And that, I think, is where the balance between teacher and parent comes into play. So what I love is the fact that I can have a conversation with my children about what they've learned and say, here's a real world example. How would you tell how to get information on this subject when this sounds compelling and this sounds compelling? How do you take those things apart? And I see how they're working through that based on the frameworks that they've been taught at CFSD. And then we get to have conversations about the actual outputs and outcomes of that. So I think it's great that it's being done, and I think it's great the way it's being done in a neutral and objective manner.
Thanks, Tom. Bart, same question. What are your thoughts on teaching students on how to recognize fake news and disinformation, and how would you support incorporating it into the curriculum?
Well, yeah, that falls under the broader rubric of teaching kids how to think and not what to think. So it's very appropriate. And actually, if you go back, this has been a problem but this has been a challenge to overcome. since the founding of the country. You look at the Federalist Papers. They were, the biggest thing you want to avoid is censorship. Even if First Amendment, for better or for worse, but I'd say mostly for better, it allows people to lie. So you have to be able to, suss out the lies. And in the Federalist Papers, they talk about it quite a bit. And the solution to speech you don't like is more speech, not to silence speech you don't like. So that needs to be taught, and it looks like it is being taught, and that's a good thing, and I support that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. Jennifer, same question to you.
Yes, I would agree with what I had to say. I agree critical thinking is very important for our students. It will continue to help them throughout life. It's important for our students to learn how to research data and understand where information is coming from and how to depict whether it is accurate or it is credible. When our teachers allow for debate in the classroom, it's great for them to be able to discuss different points of view and definitely not encourage any form of groupthink. That's where our kids get to learn and get to experience the thought process from different groups. And I think that's important. So I agree as well.
Thanks, Jennifer. Jacqueline, same question to you.
I can unequivocally state that this is already being taught in CFSD schools, and I have 3 examples of how. My daughter recently won a scholarship contest, and her topic was how to spot fake financial information. And she framed it from her perspective as a Gen Z, I believe she's Gen Z, versus her grandparents, and how to spot and critically think about the information that's being pushed to her so that she doesn't fall victim to financial scams. So I was pleased to see her understand the difference and be able to frame it in that manner. Piggybacking on that, from a young age, she's always watched the national news and the local news with us. Strange habit for a teenager, but she likes to be well informed. And we've always had thoughtful, insightful questions from her about what is happening? Why is this being said? Who is saying this and why? And she truly wants to know the facts and data behind it. Now, for my third point, she's in an advanced English class at her university now. And the topic of all things is how to spot and learn how to spot facts that are misinformed, false data. And she is well ahead of the curve in that class because of the excellent preparation that CFSD has given her on how to think critically, ask critical questions, think analytically, and push back when she feels that something is being represented incorrectly. Maybe she's wrong, maybe she's not, but she's at least willing to find out what the actual answer is. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Let's see, it's about 7:39. Normally we go to about 7:45. I do appreciate all the questions in here. I do feel that some of them kind of have like a weird, like there's 2 questions that kind of don't go together. That's kind of trying to correlate something with something else. And so I just don't want to have any like loaded questions. So, there is one relevant question here that, and this one will go out to, I'd say first come, like if you can answer this question because it's a genuinely curious, they're curious. Are there any statistics on how many, and this may be a question for you, Eileen, is there any statistics on how many school children in the Catalina School District do not attend public schools? That's a really relevant question that folks maybe just want to know the answer to. Do you have any idea, Eileen, or the rest of you, if you have those answers, like how many are choosing the vouchers or, homeschooling or choosing charters or private?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you numbers. I can tell you that our school district is close to 50% open enrollment. And the fact that we draw students from over 30 different zip codes. So while we do have district residents who choose to school their children elsewhere, There can be a myriad of reasons for why they choose to do that. It could be because they're pursuing a religious education. It could be because there's a sports program at another high school that they're interested in. There's any number of reasons, and every parent has the right to determine which school is correct for their child. But school choice is a fact of life in the state of Arizona. And the fact is that students from over 30 different zip codes have made the commitment to drive up to CFSD and become part of our CFSD family. We are grateful for all of those open enrollment students. We keep our enrollment at or around the 5,000 mark, which is one of the more efficient marks in terms of being able to efficiently use our resources and use our buildings and still be able to pay all of the bills. And it works for us. We definitely want to study the reasons why district students may choose to go elsewhere so that we can understand those reasons. And perhaps there are tweaks and adjustments to our program that we can make, that we can meet those needs and bring those students back. And that is why that has been a goal for our district superintendent, to study those issues, probably for the last 2 or 3 goal cycles or school years.
Okay. And I want to be fair here. Like, does anybody, I was really looking for statistics, or maybe if you know, or if you want to add anything to this about how many kids are staying in Catalina Foothills. If anybody, I'm sorry, I got to move there we go. I think I saw your hand up, Jacqueline. Oh, Bart too. Okay, Jacqueline and then Bart. I'm sorry. I didn't see you, Bart.
I just want to say that school choice goes both ways. And I open enrolled my daughter for almost 4 years. I made that commitment to CFSD, and I was glad that I did. And no public school is going to be everything for everyone. But when it comes to public education, I feel that CFSD does a darn good job of being everything it can for our students. Thanks.
Bart, you had your hand up too. Did you want to add something to the conversation?
Yeah, the best that we've been able to determine is that it's about 30% of the school age kids within the district attend school outside the district. That's the best that we've been able to determine.
Okay. Tom, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen numbers tossed around as high as 41% on this. There's a really cool, if you're not a data nerd, bear with me, but there's a really cool public Tableau website. So on Tableau, in the public section, there's actually data from the Arizona Department of Education about this exact issue. So how many children, how many families open enroll being either potentially inside the district, because if you're going to a different district school than the one you're geographically assigned to, you still count as open enroll, and then open enroll out of district, and then out of district coming in by school district. And based on that, it looks like it's actually about 21%. Some of this, there's always a plus minus, and then there's always, is it by family? Is it by student? So it's a number. I mean, I think any number out of context is not very helpful. And so when you look at that and you look at the fact that 21% is dwarfed by the fact that we have a net influx from all of our neighboring districts, where we receive many more students through open enrollment than we lose to open enrollment, really tell a story that while there may be other reasons to choose other districts, there's a lot more people wanting to choose CFSD. And among those reasons, yes, religious. Yes, there's plenty of reasons for that. But I've also talked to parents who have some children in CFSD schools and some children at other district schools, because they're choosing the school that's the best fit for their child. And isn't that the point of choice to begin with?
Fair. Since you haven't, did you want to add anything to the conversation, Jennifer, at all? I'm sorry. I wasn't planning on asking this question, but I want to be fair.
I think everybody touched on a little bit of everything I would have commented on. So I think we can move on.
Okay. There was one more question here too, because I know people really want to hear you. So let me see. There was one that I thought was a really great question too. let's see, and maybe this is gonna be tough, but I want to give you I want to give you all time to close out too with like a closing statement. So, what will you do? And let's see, that one was just a like random question. So this one we'll go ahead and start with Tom this time, since that's where I was on my organization chart here. That's really helpful in keeping me organized. What will you do to ensure that you listen to the voices of the students, parents, staff, and CFSD community residents rather than be influenced by outside influences that are not consistent with the CFSD community?
I love that question. And I love that question because listening is actually what I do for a living. I'm a market researcher. I interview people to understand what they believe and why they believe it. And I analyze data sets to extract meaning to drive decisions. So this is what I do every day. And it goes back to the relationships that I mentioned earlier that get built, that allow for trust and credibility when people see I can bring my voice to the conversation. We have so many ways of doing that. Again, when we talk, when we're thinking about parents, there's such accessibility, not only to principals and staff, but also to board members by attending FFO meetings. That isn't just about volunteering for events, it's about talking with the people who are making those decisions. You can go to board meetings and have public comment periods. You have all of the board members' email addresses ready. But beyond that, what I love about Superintendent Bartlett's new initiative with Listen and Learns is that she is reaching out to the community, to parents, to staff, to other specific audiences out there, hearing from them, and then sending out a survey so that everyone has the opportunity to have their voice heard. So what she is starting with this is something that at a district level brings a lot of that. And then there's also topical opportunities, like we talked about safety a little earlier. The safety issue at Orange Grove led to a wonderful partnered presentation between Orange Grove, FFO, and the Sheriff's Office to talk about safety procedures, something very topical and very relevant that's going to happen that happened at Orange Grove and will repeat at all of the other schools around the district. So from what we see there, not only is there topical specific information that is and town hall type forums, but then also the district is listening many ways.
That's time. Okay, thank you. All right, that means next we're gonna go to Bart. Let me reread the question here for you. It says, what will you do to ensure that you listen to the voices of the students, parents, staff, and CFSD community residents, stakeholders, rather than be influenced by outside influences that are not consistent with our community?
Yeah, best way to do that is town hall-like meetings and having dialogues with the community, the CFSD community. So I would want to host regular board summits similar to those which are done in the Marana School District. MUSD's parent partnership is a venue for the superintendent to meet with a group of parents on a regular basis. They discuss things. Like ideas to improve achievement, updates on board spending, gathering their feedback on district events and happenings, and initiatives the district is doing to improve learning. Parents use this venue to ask questions, raise issues, and share thoughts and opinions. Their input's valued and heard. Next month, Marana will have a board summit, and they're anticipating around 200 parents in the audience, and the board will hear from them. They will then break into small groups and do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, among other things. And this is an example of what value-added partnering with parents looks like. And that would be something that I would definitely want to do here in the district, CFSD. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. Next, we will go to Jennifer. Same question. How are you going to listen to the voices of CFSD community residents rather than be influenced by outside voices?
Yeah, I think Bart and Tom made some good points. I would agree with both of their take on basically interacting with basically interacting with parents. I like and I'm encouraged by the idea of the listen and learn with our superintendent engaging with parents from the different schools. I think it is a great start to build continued trust within the district, engage with the parents, and help address situations that maybe otherwise they wouldn't have knowledge of had they not participated in a more group and open dialogue setting. So I agree with both their take.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jennifer. Next will be Jacqueline.
So it's important to listen to everyone, all stakeholders. And in my years of being a CFSD parent, I've seen the board listen to public comments. I've emailed the board myself directly. I've emailed the superintendent to ask questions. And I love that our new superintendent's goals are partly defined by her listen and learn sessions and what data she's gathering and how she's going to take that back and help shape the future direction of our district. But as a board member individually, it's so wonderful. Every time I attended an academic awards ceremony, a play, an event, what have you, and seeing one or two board members there, or an art show, they're getting out into the community and they're able to interact with our community and our stakeholders outside of the confines of the boardroom and just, how's it going? We're here, we support our schools. They're showing how they support our students every day by taking part in these things. I also think it's important to remember the role of a board member. You can't, my understanding is 3 is a quorum. So you can't just have a board meeting and bring up a new topic and address it at that meeting without it being properly publicly noticed. Mm-hmm. And our community may not always be aware of that. So maybe we need to educate our community a little bit more about what can and cannot happen at a board meeting, what comments can be addressed, what we can do. I look forward to hopefully being a board member and being out in the community. I love those kinds of things that I see board members doing, watching our kids excel, handing them a piece of paper that says good job. And I think it's great that our board members are approachable in that manner for our parents and our students.
Awesome, thank you. And then last but not least, Eileen, and then we will move into closing statements. Instead of making it shorter, I made it longer. I apologize. Go ahead, Eileen.
Well, as a sitting board member, I can attest to a lot of what Jacqueline was talking about. I and my fellow board members do attend a lot of FFO meetings. So there's 8 different schools and they have a meeting every month, and we don't get to absolutely every single one of them every month, but we really do our best to get to these FFO meetings where we meet the parents who are involved with running this, helping to run the school, running the fundraising. There's a district FFO meeting that happens every month where all the FFO presidents meet. We always have board members there. I myself go to a lot of the events, mainly the performances at the high school. I love going over to Canyon View. They do incredible little school plays and productions. We try to get out in the community and be seen as much as possible. I also want to emphasize our public comment. Boards are not required to have public comment. We are committed to having our public comment. We do comply with open meeting laws and we do not talk about things that are not on the agenda, but I will tell you we have public comment, and then we meet with the superintendent to make sure that whoever came and commented publicly has some sort of response to their issue or concern that they brought up. I email with parents and constituents on a daily basis. As president of the board, I'm the spokesperson for the board, and I am responsible for getting back to every single one of those parents. Now, there will be times when someone makes public comment and they make a suggestion in public comment that we're not going to be responsive to, because we've had suggestions that are frankly against the law. We've had suggestions that are against expert advice. We've had suggestions that just are not a good idea, and we're not going to be responsive to those. But we have been very, very responsive in other areas that have affected policy. So in all of these ways, we keep in touch with how parents and constituents are feeling.
All right. Excellent. And with that, we, for this closing, are going to go ahead and start first with Bart. Close us out, Bart, and make sure you unmute yourself. You still are muted, Bart. It's only been what, 4.5 years of Zoom
I
meetings?
know.
It's fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for moderating. Tonight, everyone here has had the opportunity to hear from several school board candidates, and you could decide for yourselves who is more committed to teaching your children how to think rather than what to think, who is more committed to collaborating and partnering with parents of all the children so that they may each achieve the highest level possible of excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts. I know that Jennifer and I are those candidates. So please vote for Jennifer Repsher and Bart Pemberton early, and where possible, often, or no later than Tuesday, November 5th. And by the way, I hope to see everyone who has joined us tonight at the third and final candidate forum this Saturday. Details are on the websites. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Bart. Jennifer, that means you're next.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for having us on this forum. I think it really gives our community an opportunity to get to know us a little bit better. I am encouraged by all of us coming together to talk about our ideas and ways that we want to positively impact our community and our school district. I understand that we don't all agree on everything, and we may not, but it's great to be able to have the conversations, to bring up the ideas and allow us to problem solve together as a group. I am encouraged by that idea. We have the same common goal in mind, which is to provide top-rated education for our children. And we don't need to have an us versus them mentality. Instead, we can come together as a community. Because all of us here today are part of the Catalina Foothills community, and we're definitely proud of that. You can tell by our answers. Let's also remember that parents play the most important role in their child's life. We are their first educator. We instill the values that matter most to us. We care and love them more than anyone on this earth. Let's remember that parents are the experts when it comes to their children, and we trust that when we lend our children to the school, that the adults respect that bond. We send our kids to learn, so let's keep the other portions out and allow our schools to focus on improving academic outcomes in our core subjects. Bart Pemberton and myself are the candidates to vote for. We are committed to bringing trust back to our district. Please visit Jennifer4CFSD.com and Bart, the number 4CFSD.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to all the candidates, if you'd like, you're more than welcome to put your websites into the chat, but just make sure that you click that little blue button so that it says everybody instead of just hosts and panelists. And also my development director has kindly reminded me that I should also be encouraging anybody here. If this is the kind of programming that you'd like to see, please take a look at that link that he dropped into the webinar chat and feel free to become a member, sign up for our subscribe or for our Substack updates or our Friday discussions that happen every Friday at noon. All right. And with that, I am going to go back up to Jacqueline. So Jacqueline, go ahead and close. Well, tell us your closing.
So I do have a closing prepared, but before I begin, I'd like to mention this forum that Mr. Pemberton mentioned about our third and final forum. And I personally will not be there. And for those individuals who are wondering why, or would like to understand why I will not be at this forum, I would refer them to the press release we have on our website, cfsdstudentsfirst.org, which was issued back in August and clearly explains our position, mine in particular. I don't want to speak for Eileen and Tom, as to why I will not be at that forum. Now, that aside, I'd like to go to my closing comments. When I was gathering signatures, one of the first questions I was asked is, what side are you on? And not being an unjaded person, I understood that that had to do with what are my political leanings. I always tried to remind people that school board elections are nonpartisan. They're at the heart of our democracy, but our candidates don't have a letter after their name. Also, a lot of people weren't aware that it's a volunteer, unpaid 4-year commitment. So you have to really want to serve your community. It's not about sides. It's about our future, the future of our children, our schools, our community, our citizenry. Thus, the only side I'm on in this election is that of students and my community. As a candidate, I always would like to remind voters of my commitment to CFSD. I will do right by our students. I support all students and equal access to our schools. In my eyes, all students are equal, period. I support social and emotional learning and educating the whole child. I support learning beyond the classroom in all its forms. I support strengthening relationships across schools, among grade levels, with parents, and the community. I'm a Save Our Schools Arizona endorsed candidate, and I am darn proud of it. That means my commitment to public education is clear. I've shown up and stepped up for our district and its children. I'm committed to the success of Catalina Foothills School District. My actions and history with the district have proven my level of involvement. As a continuation of that service, I look forward to doing the work of the board and further supporting my community. It would be my honor to be elected and serve my community. I ask for you, the voters, vote to continue and grow the excellence that we all know is a CFSD education. Thank you for this opportunity, Jeannie, and I hope everyone learned what they needed to learn and are ready to vote. Thanks.
Gosh, can we just vote already? I'm so done. Good Lord. All right. I just wish I could be cryogenically frozen. Seriously. All right. Let's see. Eileen, go ahead and finish your tell us about yourself at the end. Sorry.
Okay.
Brain's not working.
So the thing you need to know about me is that I love this district, and I have loved being on this district's governing board for the last 12 years. And I've loved being part of CFSD's important mission to graduate kids who transfer their learning to life beyond CFSD, to their college careers and their eventual professional careers. The mission to graduate students who become responsible and contributing members of our global community. To be part of CFSD that partners with parents to achieve this. And I've heard things during our campaign and even early on tonight about CFSD declining or starting to fail its students, and I just don't see it. We have 7 A-rated schools by the Arizona Department of Education year after year after year. We graduate in the high 90%, our graduating classes. Our graduating classes of seniors earn millions in merit scholarships every single year, 16 million alone last year, which is a pretty typical number. And that's for a graduating class of about 400 kids. And we have a community that trusts us such that they have passed every bond or override that we've placed on a ballot since the 1980s. We have board members who focus on kids' needs and value all kids. CFSD is a shining example of what a public school district should look like. And it is well positioned to address challenges that come our way. And I would absolutely love the opportunity to continue this important work for the next 2 years. This district, its teachers, staff, administrators, students, parents, deserve a board that's supportive of all the great things that serve our students so well and that want to build on that greatness. Please vote for Eileen Jackson so that I can help protect the district from ideas that would tear down this greatness. Protect it with your vote for me, Jacqueline Davali, and Tom Logue. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. All right, last but not least, Tom, go ahead and truly close us out.
All right. I'm standing between everyone and drinks, right? So I do want to first also echo Jacqueline and thank Bart for bringing this up. We have made it known, and when I say we, I mean me and Jacqueline and Eileen, for over a month now that we're not going to be at this event on October 5th. And just wanted to mention that here so that there's no confusion, and so that because I see that there's still the event still being promoted with all of our names and all of our pictures, and I would hate for any voters to be misled into thinking we'll be there. We will not. That said, let me close out with my statement, which really is this, and I hope you've heard this from me several times tonight and have taken away that my entire goal as a board member will be to put students first. That includes obviously my own students. I do not think trust has left our district. I trust our district every day when I send my 2 children to our district schools. And when I do that, I'm doing it because I see in our district stellar academics. I see amazing arts. I see athletics that are fantastic, extracurriculars that my children have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy. I see right now what I want to keep seeing until 2031 and beyond. And to get there, in my mind, it's simple. It's looking at what has made this district great so far and figuring out how to improve on that. That is the involvement of parents in the community, and I can speak to that very well. It is social emotional learning and all of the benefits that it provides. So my hope is that you will recognize in me someone who loves our district and wants to bring the voice of an active, involved, current CFSD parent to the board. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, residents of Catalina Foothills. I also do not want to be in the way of you and your first adult beverage for the evening. So I just want to say thank you to all 5 of you for coming tonight. It was really interesting for me, and I'm sure it was interesting for the folks who actually live in your community to hear your perspectives. I really want to appreciate all of you for stepping up to run. It is a volunteer position. And I appreciate anybody who's willing to step up and represent their community. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to everybody for attending. If you like this, of course, you know where to find us. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.